Remember, it's not Christmas until Noddy Holder screams. Hey, hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing really well. At the time of recording this, it's Christmas, of course, so I'll try to be a bit Christmas here with my background, some of my favorite Christmas records or Yuletide records. But if you're watching it after the fact, I hope you had a lovely Christmas and get enough rest and food in you to face yet another fresh year in our calendar, because we are closing in on the end of 2024. And what a great year in music it has been, at least in my opinion. So, as so many other music YouTubers do at this time of year, I'm going to go through the best of 2024, according to me, Tobias, of course. And I started up my channel last year, and I did one best of in December last year as well. But I did include some reissues in that one. It's the only thing I really excluded for this year. I'm only going to do a short review of the music that was really near and dear to me. Things that really caught on with me. I listened to over and over again and still listen to it, of course. Music that I just loved, that was released in this year 2024. So it could be on a 7-inch, could be an album, an EP, whatever. I'm not going to do any distinctions here and do separate episodes for albums and singles and so forth and so on. No, it's all in here. The music that I loved that was released in 2024. So without any further ado, let's kick things off, and I will try to break my trend here and not to make such lengthy episodes. I tend to do very lengthy episodes, but I try to shorten it this time around and not get too granular in the details for each and every of these releases. First off, the one that's probably on most best of list, or some at least. Charli XCX, Brat, of course. We had the Brat summer, the year of Brat, or whatever. This was the year when I actually discovered Charli XCX as an artist. I was aware of her as an artist before, but never really listened to Charli XCX because for some reason I didn't think it was going to appeal to me. But you know, going to and from work during the week, I listen to my Spotify playlists, and if one of them runs out, it just started playing recommended listening for you, basically. And one of the tracks at some point was Charli XCX. Von Dutch, I think it was. I'm just living that life. Then I was like, what is this? This is really good. And yeah, so it caught on with me, and I listened more to that album, and I was blown away, basically. And I know I talked about this before in the summer this year, but yeah. Nothing new really, but to me it was a bit of a fresh air in the state of pop music in 2024. I remember I was referring to the music I heard here akin to what Peaches did once upon a time with the Teachers of Peaches, or even Chicks on Speed. That was my gut reaction at the time, but now 6 months later or so, I want to say it's more akin to the beloved Robin. I love Robin's music, and I think it's more akin to that. A bit more polished than Peaches or even Chicks on Speed, for that matter. But I love the attitude is still there in the music, in the lyrics. I just love it, and the sense of nostalgia is in there as well, of course. Looking back on the times when things were a bit easier, more easygoing, and the way they dressed and so forth and so on. And I think even me, I'm being far from the age that Charli XCX is. I'm way older, of course, but I can still relate to it, the feelings that I had at that age, and even today, some of the lyrics actually resonates with me as well. So yeah, I think it's a great album, but like I said, nothing new. But what is today? I mean, everything is just recycled when it comes to music, and it's been like that for the last couple of decades, really. So yeah. Yeah, Charlie XCX Brat, great one. Still play that a lot. And like so many other artists today, she couldn't sell for just one edition of that album. No, we got a couple of them. And one of them I picked up, and it's this one, Brat, and it's completely different, but also still Brat. Of course, this is a remix album of sorts, I would say. Collaboration album. So I picked this one up. It was just released a couple of months after, and you get the original album, of course, this one. So this is pretty redundant now because I got that on one disc, and the other disc is, of course, the remix album, if you can call that. And on this one, what she did, she didn't send it off to a bunch of DJs to remix it and so forth and so on. No, she invited a lot of other artists to do renditions of her songs from Brat. And among these, we had Robin, of course, that I just talked about. Lovely. Lord was on here, of course, and a bunch of others. The list goes on and on. There's so many, and the renditions are so good. Another breath of fresh air to hear these renditions with other artists as well. Yeah, it's brilliant. So that's why I have to put Brat on my best of list of 2024. And also another welcome comeback, if I can say that. Pet Shop Boys, nonetheless. And yeah, I say comeback. They never really quit or had any lengthy gaps between their albums. They've been going steady ever since their debut in the early 80s or mid 80s, really. And I remember listening to their first album when it came out, and ever since then I've been hooked to Pet Shop Boys, really. It was only after the album Vary in was it 1993? That I tuned out a bit for the Pet Shop Boys, because if you've been following my channel, I was heavily invested in the electronic dance scene at the time, so it might have been one of the issues. But yeah, I certainly listened to the singles they released for each and every album after that, and I always appreciated it. I never thought they had a dull moment, really. But it wasn't until this year I actually picked up again on Pet Shop Boys in the modern era, that is. And that was actually last year when they released this single, Loneliness. And I think, if I'm not misremembering things, this was on my best of list last year as well. So this was the one that kicked things off for this album that arrived just in the early summer. If I'm not misremembering things, it wasn't that long ago, but I should remember. But ever since I got this album, I played it so much. And let me tell you, each and every track on this one, in my humble opinion, should be a single. And we nearly got that today, to be honest. Because, like I said, we got Loneliness on this one. And then, I'm sure the order is correct here, we got Dancing Star as well. Beautiful track. And I don't need to say it for the rest of them. All of them are great, in my opinion, here. Then we got New Bohemia, of course. Another great one during the summer. And Feel as well. Ooh, another great one. And now just recently we got this one. This is, of course, my favorite track from Nonetheless, and that's New London Boy. Together with the cover of the David Bowie song, All the Young Dudes. Yeah, so we got these ones. So it's a bunch of single they released as well, quite a lot of them, so nearly every track here is a single now, and my wish come true, of course. And if you're a Pet Shop Boys fan, you should really, if you haven't already done that, pick up these ones, because you know, as if you're a Pet Shop Boys fan, that they always include exclusive B-sides. Do we even call them B-sides now because they're on CD? Well, I call them B-sides, but additional tracks, exclusive tracks that are just for these CD singles. So I talked about this one last year, how I was infatuated with Party in the Blitz, which is a great track. And you get that for each and every single. And of course you get the different mixes of the main track and so forth and so on. And on these two, the most recent one for New London Boy, you get great mixes of New London Boy as well as All the Young Dudes as well, the cover, the David Bowie cover as well. So yeah, just a great year for Pet Shop Boys, and I call it a comeback, a great one. The sound on this album is, to me, it sounds like they picked up a bit from every single album they ever released, and they put them down in a blender, and out comes this wonderful pop that we got on Nonetheless. And very much like Charlie XCX did with Brat, they also released an expanded edition of Nonetheless as well. Yeah, that's just a trend nowadays with most artists, I would say, where you get different editions with bonus tracks and so forth and so on. And this was lovely. You get some additional tracks that wasn't on the original album, and you also get demos for the tracks on Nonetheless as well. And that's something I really appreciate when artists do that. I'm not too fond of just outtakes on albums. It could be interesting, but full demos, just to hear what it was sounding like at the birth, when the song was conceived, in a way. Yeah, it's always interesting, and that's exactly what they did with this one. But just like Charlie XX Brat, if you bought what I did, the CD version, well, even the vinyl version, you get the full album plus the additional material on another disc. So the first one is really redundant, but yeah, I'm still going to keep it, of course. Yeah, so love Pet Shop Boys. It's been in heavy rotation this year. Nonetheless. And now I'm just going to grab random here from my pile of records, and we go to 7-inch that I talked about here before. This is Ollie Alexander and Dizzy. This was the UK entry for Eurovision this year, and I talked about this one in connection to my Eurovision episode that I had, my special. And what a lovely pop single this is. Got a lot of flack here in the UK, but that seemed to be the trend for the last couple of years for the UK entries, where the UK population, not as a whole, but some, are really putting them down and saying really horrible things about them. I don't know why. I can't remember ever seeing that in Sweden. And back in Sweden, we are big, huge Eurovision. We are a huge nation of Eurovision-loving people. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, so I don't really get the flack that these artists get. But yeah, I love this one. It's such a great one. So when I saw it was going to be released on a 7-inch, I went ahead, ordered it straight away, and now I've been playing a lot here. So you get both the extended version and the shorter Eurovision version as well on this 7-inch. And wow, what a track. And I know I said this before, but a lot of people liken it to Pet Shop Boys that we just talked about, like Pet Shop Boys track. And of course, Ollie Alexander has been collaborating with them before, but to me it sounds more like an Erasure track from somewhere in the 1980s. It might have been. But you got the wonderful voice of Ollie Alexander that makes it quite unique. And I can't stop listening to this one. And then we move on to a Swedish artist, actually, called Verna Lint. And you might say, I think a lot of people out there would be like, Verna who? Or Verna who? And that's exactly what I did as well a couple of years ago when I went into my favorite record shop here in Reading, Sound Machine, when I found this one, Verna Lind's Intelligence. This is from 1985. So you rummage through the bins, and usually you recognize the covers, the bands, the titles and all of that. But when I came across this one, I was like, never seen this one before. I don't recognize the name at all. But something really caught my eye here, and it was the news clippings behind Verna Lint here. Most of it's in Swedish, so I was like, ooh, Swedish news clipping. Is this a Swedish artist? So I googled Verna Lint, and lo and behold, yeah, she's from Sweden, but she's been living in London for most of her career, and residing with a small label called the Compact Organization. I thought I knew about most indie labels especially here in the UK during the 80s, being a big fan of both Factory and Sanctum Tum, for example. and kitchenware records and things like that. But I never heard of a compact organization, and certainly not of Vera Lind. But it turns out, short story, compact organization had big artists like Mary Wilson, another one that I talked about here. So yeah, and then Verna Lind came into my life. So yeah, I picked this one up. I think it was £2 or something like that. So it's like, it's nothing to lose really. If I don't like it, I can just sell it. But yeah, I fell in love with this one. Just wonderful. This Intelligence is a wonderful pop record with her talking about serving intelligence over shortwave radio or something like that. Yeah, so that's mostly the theme. If I'm going to describe Verna Lind's music, it's been if you mix a James Bond soundtrack from the late 60s, early 70s perhaps, mix that with the pop of its time, in 1985 for example, you get Verna Lind basically. And not only that, there's if you listen to her first album, Shiver, and her second one as well, I think it's called Play Your Record, there is a lot of nearly crossover to ambient music, with Verna a lot of the times just speaking over the music, sometimes singing, but most of the time speaking, and it's just this soothing feeling that she brings along, and with her unique voice and the arrangements of the music, and sometimes it's just pure lounge music really, so it's just a mixture of it all. And her first single she ever released in the early 80s, called Attention Stockholm, where she debuted on a compact organization, it's a brilliant example of Verna Lind. So if you want to listen to what Verna Lind, the typical sound I would say, or something that really cements her in that genre that I can't really pinpoint, it's listening to Attention Stockholm. She speaks a lot of Swedish in the background of this track, desperately trying to get the attention of Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, because something is going on. And it's, like I said, it's thriller music, Bond music, mixed up with the new wave of the time, the post-punk of the time. It's just that wonderful. I never heard anything like it. So with that as a summary of Verna Lind, Out Cold came out late November this year. And really, I've been picking up a lot of records ever since I discovered Verna Lind. So whenever I come across anything in the secondhand shops, I always pick them up. So I have a bunch of Verna Lind singles. I got both of her albums. And a couple of years ago, she teased that there was a new album coming out, and she released, I think, 2 singles. One in 2017 and one in 2019, something like that. But never, and nothing really materialized out of that. And I think it has to do with the pandemic coming in between of things. And then it was silence after that, basically. And all of a sudden, this one popped up. And I was like, wow, I have to get it. Exclusively through Rough Trade. So if you want to order this one, it's through Rough Trade. But it's also on streaming services like Spotify. So you can listen to it there. So I was over the moon. And it actually states here, it's from the forthcoming album, Donau, like the river, you know, that flows through so many countries, Germany and Austria, among others. So really looking forward. It looks like now it's finally happening. So in 2025 could be a big year for Verna Lind, I hope. But this one, wow. I always say that I appreciate when a lot of artists evolve and change their sound a bit over the years through from album to album and so forth and so on. But this is pure Verna Lind, and that's with some artists you don't want them to screw too much with the formula, right? And that's exactly what Verna Lind. She didn't do that. That's what I want to say. And I'm so glad, because the core of it is there. Of course she's matured and she got other influences, but the core Verna Lind sound is in there. And there's this brilliant electric piano in there, or organ, or whatever you call it. that accompanies her through this, and it always reminds me every time I listen to it now of Riders on the Storm with the Doors, that sound of it. But this is Verna Lind. It's nothing like it out there. So yeah, that's me trying to explain my passion for Verna Lind and the sound of Verna Lind. But go out and listen to this one. Yeah, it's a great one. Out Cold. The next highlight is actually a late release as well. I think it came along at the same time as Verna Lind actually, and that's Future Sound of London's new EP. And I actually don't have a real title to this one. It says Future Sound of London here, the abbreviation of course, but then it says Pre-8 A001 EPA, and I'm sure part of that is just a catalog number for that one. And we only get some of the Earthbeat logos and some of the other well-known logos for Future Sound of London on this one. But we do get 6 tracks on this EP, and I'm really pleased to hear the Future Sound of London being back. And I'm saying back because they never really took a break, and not that long. They've just been under different constellations, like different names. But they released 2 great albums, of course, in the 1990s, and that was Lifeforms and Dead Cities. And then after Dead Cities, they started doing other projects, still doing great music, but quite different ones. And then in later years, they released a lot of archived recordings, environment compilations, and things like that. A lot of unreleased materials gone out, and there's so much, so it would take me an whole episode here on my channel to just explain Future Sound London, and I'm not sure I'm the real authority on this one because it's a bit of a confusing world, Future Sound of London. But it's one of those groups, one of those electronic acts from the 1990s that I'm still listening to quite a lot. So I was really excited when I saw that a new EP was out, and this one is actually going to be followed by another EP, so that's why it says EPA here. So I'm sure EPB will be the next one, and then we'll get a new album from Future Sound London, and that really excites me. But for the tracks here, it's what we got used to with the Future Sound of London, lush electronic soundscape that just sweeps you off into sometimes it depicts an urban landscape, sometimes a jungle, sometimes you're underwater. It could be anything really, and that's what I love with the Future Sound of London. And this is no different. We were taken for a ride. For the first track, it starts out really mellow with choirs, and then it goes off into a beat that's very akin of We Have Explosives that they released from the Dead Cities back in, was it 96 that one came out? And then we go into Leafy Suburbs, a really nice lush soundscape as well. And then on the B-side, Being Humans, Human Beings, Slow Moving Carcass, and Out of View. It's just a beautiful collection of new tracks from Future Sound of London. Yeah, so the easiest way to explain them, think ambient music in the 1990s, and better go back, listen to some of their tracks. You probably heard of Papua New Guinea, for example. I think I talked about that one this summer when I was doing my record haul at the Sound Machine here in Reading. But yeah, it's just that, just like I said, beautiful electronic soundscapes that with a lot of sampling going on from movies, television, all of it, and it's just beautifully melted together into compositions that are out of this world. That has to be in my summary for Future Sound of London. If the second EP is anything like this, it's for sure going to turn up on my best of 2025. And we'll just wait and see. The album might just blow everything else out of the water. Yeah, probably will. And then the next one here happens to be in my pile of records. A new album from Kylie Minogue. I couldn't believe it, because last year, one of my best albums last year was Tension from Kylie Minogue. And then nearly a year later, she releases Tension 2, of course. And I talked about this earlier here in the year when this single was released. This is My Oh My with Kylie, of course, BB Rexa and Tuvalu, the Swedish artist. And I wasn't too fond of that. I thought it was okay, but it's reminded me of I'm Blue or something like that. It still does. I'm not too fond of it. It's probably the first time in several years where I found that a Kylie song was a bit, yeah, it's okay. Because most of the time it's brilliant. But then, Tension 2. All of a sudden, she announces that Tension 2 is going to be out. And I was like, wow, really? Surely it can't live up to Tension, the first one from last year. Well, it did. It is way better than Tension, and Tension was brilliant, so I don't know how to classify this one. But yeah, got great tracks. It does start off with My Oh My, which... it's okay. I said it's not a bad song, but yeah, it's okay. But then it goes into Lights, Camera, Action, which I happened to pick up on a single as well. I think it was just released before this album came out, or yeah, something like that. But wow, blown away. And other track, I'm not going to go through all of this, but we got Edge of Saturday Night, of course, which she did with the Blessed Madonna. Another stunning track that we heard before, because it was released before on the Blessed Madonna's album as well, and as well as a single. And then we got Midnight Ride with Orwell Peck and Diplo. And this is another track that I know I talked about in the summer, because we got some people recording it live from one of her shows, or was it Orwell Peck show that she was guesting, or something like that. And the sound quality wasn't too great, but I was, yeah, it sounds good. Listening to it here on the album, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's so, so good. And then we got Kiss Bang Bang, Hello, Should I Left You, which is great, and Dance Alone with Sia. What an album she released, Kylie. Yeah, I didn't think she could exceed the first one, Tension, but yeah, she did. She did. There's no stopping her now, really. What a great album. Pure party album, uplifting as ever with Kylie. Just brilliant, brilliant pop from Kylie. And yeah, as you can see, I bought it on vinyl, so you get a beautiful gatefold cover here with Kylie entrapped in some kind of diamond on an endless dune or a sea or something like that. Really beautiful artwork here. I really like what they did with the artwork for Tension 2. Wasn't too fond of Tension 1. It works, but hey, the music is the most important thing in this one. And as so many other artists, different vinyl releases, this one happened to come on a clear vinyl. I'm not going to pick it up, but trust me, it's clear. And most importantly, it sounds really good. Nice, dynamic mastering, and the pressing is nice and quiet on that one. Yeah, so that's Kylie, Tension 2. One of my favorite albums this year. No surprise there to my frequent listeners and watchers here on YouTube. Then over to another female artist that I've also been talking quite a lot about on this channel. Talking about Betty Boo, Rip Up The Rulebook. Betty Boo, who had a huge career in the beginning of the 1990s, and that's where I first heard Betty Boo. Actually, it was through Beatmasters when she did a guest appearance on one of the tracks. Hey DJ, I can't dance to that. But then she went on a solo career and did a lot of beautiful pop rap gems in the early 90s. Released 2 albums, and then there was a long hiatus until she released Boomerang just a couple of years ago, and I was like, Betty Boo is back! I was amazed, and it sounded so good. She still has the flow, the rhymes, everything works so well. And you know what? Rip Up The Rulebook is even better than Boomerang. So this is another case, just like with Kylie and Tension 2, the follow-up here. Rip Up The Rulebook is even better. Wow, what a treat to get a new Betty Boo album. So yeah, and this is certainly a roller coaster of a record, and a good one, because some people don't like roller coasters, but I'm talking about the good ones where you got these different feelings of happiness and thrills going up and down in the roller coaster. This is it. The party album for sure, got some real good bangers on it. Starts off with a track called Barbarella, which is my favorite one, and I was so glad that to see just before Christmas here she released it as a single. You can get it on streaming. It's a bit remixed version, an edited single versions kind of way, and it sounds even better than the album track, so she added a couple of things in it, and it just brilliant pop. She deserves to be more famous than she really is, because I think most of us do harken back to the 1990s where we were fans of Betty Boo. But certainly there are a couple of new fans as well, but I think she deserves so much more. So if you want some really good Betty Boo rap pop kind of thing, please have a listen to this one. I'm sure you're gonna enjoy it quite a lot. And of course, she evolved as well, like every other artist. But like I said, with Boomerang, she still's got the flow, the rhymes are there. And the roller coaster side of things is really, you go from pop to more rap-oriented tracks, and then all of a sudden you got a throwback track in the form of Rip Up The Rulebook, the title track, which harkens back, way back into the early 80s, you know, Sugar Hill Gang and all of that, and it's just a love. It works so well. So yeah, and designers, please take note on how she designed this cover as well. So you got a smiling, lovely Betty Boo here, and yeah, I pre-ordered it from her website, so I got it autographed as well. But yeah, so you got a smiling Betty Boo here, but if we turn it over, you got an alternate cover here with Betty Boo still smiling, but in a red jacket there. And yeah, so you can switch whatever mood you're in. You want the red clad Betty Boo, or the black clad Betty Boo here. So yeah, really nice. It's a single LP, but they did it as a gatefold. Really beautiful artwork there, and the vinyl record itself, of course, comes on a red and white splatter vinyl. And just like with the Kylie one, the most important thing here, how does it sound? It sounds absolutely fantastic. Nice dynamics, it's really good mastering, and the pressing is really good. So yeah, if you haven't done so yet, check out Betty Boo, Rip Up The Rulebook, in heavy rotation throughout the year ever since I got it. And next in line, we got the synth pop phenomena from the 80s, Propaganda. Another group I've been talking quite a lot about here on my channel. Yeah, Propaganda was being signed with Sanctum Thumb back in 1984 when they released Dr. Mabuse, and then we had another great single with Jewel the year after, and P Machinery, of course. All culminating with this great album, A Secret Wish. I remember getting this one in 1985, and boy, I played it a lot. I played it and played it and played it over and over again. It just transported me to other worlds. It's got that production around it, that each song paints its a unique landscape with both the lyrics and the instrumentation of it. I was mesmerized with this one, and even back in the day I wasn't too proficient in English back then, but yeah, this one really blew me away, and still does. It really held up really well. Produced by Steve Lipson. And Propaganda, of course, is Michael Mertens, Susanne Freitag, Claudia Brücken, and Ralf Dörper in this constellation. And then there was a lot of things happening with Sanctum Thumb, lawsuits and all that. I won't go into that now. And we had to wait until, was it 1990 or 1991? Well, they released another album called 1, 2, 3, 4, if I'm not mistaken. I listened at the first single at the time, and I also bought the album actually, but it didn't really live up to A Secret Wish. We were all hoping to get a follow-up to that one of the same caliber and, you know, the recognizable sound of Propaganda. But now they were with a different company. I think they signed with Virgin, if I'm not mistaken, and not all the members were in this group. There were a couple of people missing, so it wasn't really the original Propaganda, if you want. And it was good, but it wasn't as good, so I just forgot about it. And then it took up until 2022, I believe, when this one came out. This is Claudia Brücken and Susanne Freitag as ex-Propaganda. So they didn't require the name just Propaganda, they are ex-Propaganda, yeah, you know. And they released this wonderful album, The Heart is Strange. And in my opinion, this is basically Secret Wish 2.0. And it's produced by Steve Lipson once again, and they managed to capture the same atmosphere, I want to say. That's a perfect summary, I think, of this one. So I really, really enjoyed this. This is one of the highlights of 2022 for me, ex-Propaganda. But that was just the voices of Propaganda, if you want, Claudia and Susanne. Then we have Michael and Ralf Dörper, of course, Michael Mertens and Ralf Dörper, that is. And they've been doing a lot of other music projects, but not under the name Propaganda. But this year was going to change things. They released this, Propaganda, and the title of the album is Propaganda. Yes. So there was a lot of anticipation when they announced this one. I'm a member of a fan forum of Propaganda on Facebook, and I know there was a lot of chatter around this, and I was among the people who was really excited about this one. We didn't know really what it was going to sound like. We got some sound bites from it. I thought it sounded really good. Then this album dropped, and there was, to put it mildly, a lot of divided opinions around this one. A lot of people said, well, it doesn't sound like Propaganda. And when they say it doesn't sound like Propaganda, they are referring, of course, to the 1985 album, Secret Wish. And you know what? I love this one. From the opening track, They Call Me Nocebo. What a wonder. I was hooked from that point. And then you got Purveyor of Pleasure after that one, Vicious People, Tipping Point, Distant, so forth and so on. Every single track is so good. Of course, it's more of a contemporary sound, which should be, because if you think about it, if Propaganda continued from 1985, released an album every 2 or 3 years, just continue it going and didn't have that gap with people leaving and so forth and so on, they would evolve as well. They did evolve for their second album as well, even if I didn't like it as much, but they did evolve. They had a bit of a different sound, and that's what I think would happen with this as well, because I know Michael Mertens and Ralf Dörper, they moved on. It's been a lot of years since, nearly 40 years since The Secret Wish, and different influences, you get older and all of that. So this is, in my opinion, this is probably what Propaganda would have sounded like. I would love to have Claudia Brücken and Susanne Freitag being members here as well. They just reunited all of them. But they got some beautiful vocals here from Thunder Bay, Ralf and Michael does. So she's doing the vocal duties here, and what a wonderful job she does. It's really, really good. Yeah, so I'm just in love with this one. It's, like I said, it's more contemporary sound, but they also have their own way of doing pop here, really. It's nothing like anything you will find on the charts today, but it's still, to me, it paints those wonderful atmospheres that we got from Secret Wish. But of course, in a different way. This is more akin to ambient sort of music, more electronic. I think what I talked about Future Sound of London before. If this is nothing like Future Sound of London, but just imagine yourself those lush electronic landscapes. That's what they built this on. So it's, yeah, It's just really, really good. And the edition I'm holding in my hand happened to have an orange blot over here, and that means the whole thing goes in orange here, even the vinyl itself. Here we go, yeah, orange. And this is a double album, and I do think that if you buy the standard edition of this one, you only get one album, which contains 8 tracks. Wonderful tracks, but this one I pre-ordered. It's a numbered edition, the limited one, so you get a second disc on this one with some additional tracks here. So you get 5 other tracks, and these are more ambient tracks, more I don't know how to really, not really ambient, but you know, atmospheric tracks, and not a lot of vocals on them. But yeah, once again, it gels so well with the rest of the tracks. I'm transported into other realms and universes, really, when I'm listening to it. And I just love it. It's something, once it ended, I just started it over again and played it. It's just one of those. I play a lot of board games, solo board games, sometimes in the evenings. And this is one of the albums I always put on when I do that. It puts me in a really calm mood, and yeah. Good one. Propaganda by Propaganda. Yeah. And let's now move on to another one, which also transports me into that really warm, nice feeling. It's a bit of a comfort blanket for me. I'm talking about Marika Hackman, and I'm saying it like that because it always sounds a bit German to me. Marika Hackman. But I think it's Marika Hackman or something like that, because she's actually from here in the UK. Singer-songwriter, which I first discovered with Any Human Friend. This album, a wonderful one. And what really drew me into Marika Hackman in the first place is that, just like with Suzanne Vega, that's another big artist for me, it's one of those artists that has wonderful melodies and lyrics, but first and foremost the lyrics. So every time I put on a Suzanne Vega album, it's the lyrics that really caught my ear. I love her lyrics, and the same goes for Marika Hackman. Lovely melodies, but it's the lyrics that really draws me in, and I start listening to it, because there are some music, like, you know, pop music, I don't always listen to the lyrics in the first place, because it's a melody that gets me hooked and all that. But with Marika Hackman, yeah, blown away. This was actually the first album that I picked up this year in 2024. It was released in January, so when I saw that she had a new album out, I was like, oh, it's a follow-up for Any Human Friend. What I did miss out, because I wasn't really following Marika Hackman that closely. I think she released at least another album between Any Human Friend and this one, but I missed out on that one. But anyhow, so when I saw that this one was coming, I was like, oh, finally, the new album. So I went on to Spotify to have a listen to it before I went on to buy it, and I just loved it. I was like, oh yeah, that's the Marika Hackman that I remember. A bit of a different kind of vibe here. The other one was more poppy and Human Friend. This one is more introvert in a way, and it does make sense, because I read that she wrote these songs during the pandemic, or the lockdown as it was here in the UK, because it was really a lockdown here. A lot of us, or all of us I would say, was really isolated during that time, so we had to deal with a lot of different emotions, and that's exactly what she goes through on this one. The first track on this one, for example, is all about her friends or family or whatever, just telling her, giving her good advice. You should do this, you shouldn't do that. Most of it is you shouldn't do that, and so forth and so on. So it's a lot of things she's struggling with that she is singing about on this record, Big Sigh. Really, really good one. Not in heavy rotation this year, I have to say, because it's a pretty heavy album as well. But like I said here initially, it's a bit of a warm blanket to me, and I know it's a bit it doesn't really gel up with what I just explained, because it's a lot of angst, anxiety in this one, and doubts and fears. But for some reason, hearing someone else sing about it in this manner, about the different topics, it makes you realize you're not alone in thinking all of these things and getting all these advice and whatever it might be. So that's where that comes in. It's a really good one, but it's always been in the back of my mind. So in some days it's just like, oh, I need to go home and listen to that Marika Hagman record, The Big Sigh. And that's why it's on this list, Best of 2024, because it's such a brilliant album from Marika Hagman. We are not quite finished yet. I got yet another big highlight from 2024 when it comes to music releases, and it's this one. This is Björk and Rosalia, for a Spanish artist, and the track is called Oral. Yeah, this is a single. It's, of course, the 12-inch I'm holding in my hand. And it's one of those outstanding pop tracks from Björk. And it's really hard to explain. If you never heard Björk, please go and listen to her straight away and then come back here. Because it's really hard to explain the pop sense that Björk has. It's very unique. She's got a very unique voice. She's got a very unique take on music in whatever she's been doing. And I've always been a big fan of Björk. There was a couple of years when I was just listening with one ear, basically, but I liked what I heard. But for the last couple of years, I've been really invested in what Björk has been releasing. And when this one came up, I was intrigued, because I never heard of this track before. It's not from any album. So it turns out this is a track that she wrote leading up to the Vespertine album. But she didn't want to release it on that album because she found it too poppy. So yeah, it was shelved. And then last year she picked it up again, because apparently it's been in the back of her head all this time that she had this great track, or other people at least reminded her of this great track. So she was like, okay, I'm going to do something with this one. They released it as a single this year, and she got in contact with Rosalia. I'm not too familiar with this Spanish artist, but she's got a lovely voice. And together they made one of the most unique pop songs of 2024 with Oral. And it's... yeah, I can't really explain it better than that. I can also say that Björk is one of those artists that I mentioned that before with Susanne Vega and Marika Hagman, that it's one of those artists where I really listen to the lyrics. But in this case, most of the time with Björk, it's a bit cryptic. You have to make up your own mind of what she's really singing about. And I think that is the case of this one as well. I might be dumb or something, but that's always the case with me with Björk most of the time. Sometimes it's pretty straightforward, but with this one as well, is it about a relationship? Is it about herself? Is it about something completely different? And I love that with Björk as well. Just sitting there, just imagine, what could this be? And you always, another artist that's just painting landscapes with the music that she does and her voice and all of that. Just wonderful. Yeah. So Oral, what an highlight. And with this one, on the A side, you get the original one, Oral, with these two brilliant artists. And then on the B side, you get an Olof Dreyer remix. And Olof Dreyer is, of course, one part of The Knife, the Swedish group, together with his sister Karin Dreyer as well. And if you ever heard The Knife, I think you can imagine the sound, the very unique sound they created for The Knife. And that's what you get with this remix as well. You can hear straight away this must be an Olof Dreyer remix, and it certainly is. And he did something really peculiar with it, because it's not just like a dance remix straight off. He put it in a bit of a different key, really, at least to my ears. So it sounds like a bit of a different song, but it's still got the chorus there and the original lyrics, of course. But he'd managed to make a completely new song out of it. And you could, of course, say that with a lot of remixes, but you really have to hear it to... know what I'm talking about here. I'm having a really hard time explaining this, and that's usually the case with Björk. I can just say it's an amazing, very unusual pop single. Wonderful. And on another note, when it comes to the cover here, this beautiful computer-generated cover of Björk and Rosalia standing there in a coral reef, it seems, or something like that. And it's the glossiest record cover I have in my collection by far. As you can see, you can use it basically as a mirror here. You can see the other side of the room and my camera and everything. And it's just wonderful, but very prone to fingerprints here. But it's absolutely stunning in very rigid cardboard as well. And you also get an inner sleeve with this one. There you go. With some computer-generated graphics there as well. It's just lovely. And here on this side you get the lyrics, so you can just spin it along and sing along to Oral by Björk and Rosalia. And another good thing, if you buy this, is that all the money from this record goes to a non-profit organization that are trying to prevent an opening of an industrial salmon farm on Iceland. And that's an initiative from Björk, of course, who's always hold the preservation of nature very close to her heart, and welfare of animals and all that. So the money goes to something really good from this wonderful, very unique pop single. So keep that in mind. So if you really like what you're hearing, please order a copy of this one, either from One Little Independent on their website. You can get this one, or I'm sure you can get it from other outlets as well. But all the money goes towards that non-profit organization, so that's really good. And they don't skimp on the presentation at all, as we could see. Really great cover, and the vinyl itself, of course, comes on a colored vinyl. The only thing that really confused me, because the description said mother of pearl color. It's not really mother of pearl. It's more like a coral reef, perhaps. Who knows? But I really love it. Most importantly, another case of where the record sounding really good. I had no problems with this at all, and yeah, go out and listen to it. Björk and Rosalia, Oral. And what do we have left? Well, probably the best. These are all the best albums, of course, but this is, this is Paul McCartney and Wings, One Hand Clapping. And that's a bit weird, really, because this is a recording from, was it 73, 74? Paul went into a studio with Linda, his wife at the time, and Denny Lane, of course. They just hot over heels of recording Band on the Run, and he had this vision of going into a studio, doing a couple of live sessions with a new band, new Wings if you want, and an orchestra and some brass instruments and all of that, and doing a couple of new songs, a couple of old songs, and a couple of Beatles songs as well. For the first time, I think, ever since he left the Beatles, he tackled those ones on his own. And yeah, I talked about this one before. If you want to, you can go and search that video on my channel here. I also did one after seeing the screening of the One Hand Clapping film as well in London this summer. So go and watch that one, because it was meant to be released as a TV movie, really, or something like that, because he hired a director to film these sessions, and it would be the One Hand Clapping film. But it never materialized. It was shelved for reasons, and but now, finally, in 2024, we got the official version, because there'd been bootlegs circling around forever of this one. But this is the official one with remastered tracks, a double LP. I bought the one that also came with a 7-inch, where we have the backyard sessions with Paul and the guitar, basically doing some rock and roll classics, basically. But I think this main album, that's the most important thing, because the energy of Paul and the Wings here, and the orchestra and everyone's involved, is just amazing. And I talked about this before, just discovering Paul McCartney as a solo artist. just a couple of years ago, I dwelled into that rabbit hole, and it's just gotten deeper and deeper. And this has been the culmination of it all, really. A really good, I would say, a collection of McCartney solo songs and Wings. And Beatles, of course, as well. So it's a perfect compilation with very different iterations of these different tracks. Some more known to the general public, some more less known to the general public, but it's a perfect, I'll call it compilation. One hand clapping from Paul McCartney and Wings. Whew, they've been played a lot in this house this year. And I think that's it for my highlights. There was probably a couple of singles I missed out on, but these are the ones that really came to my mind when I looked at the playlists, what I played here, because I usually put all my vinyl records in one place when I play them a lot, so I can easily access them. So yeah, these are the ones. But there was also a couple of downsides to 2024 when it comes to records that I bought. Because I could do a lot of other disappointments when it comes to music this year, but it was nothing that I bought really. So the first one is Dua Lipa, and here we go, Radical Optimism. So I talked about this one certainly in December last year, when a couple of singles turned up from this one, so the forthcoming album at the point. So we got Houdini, which I nominated to one of the best singles from last year, and I still stand by my word. I think it's a really good pop single. And then we had Training Day after that one in early 2024, I believe. And it was good. It wasn't as good as Houdini, but I liked it. I liked Training Day. So the anticipation for the new Dua Lipa album was tremendous. Because during the named pandemic, that I mentioned before, I listened quite a lot to this one. It's future nostalgia, of course, with Dua Lipa. And it was just the perfect pop that I and so many others needed at the time. It was a lifesaver in a way, with her flirting with 80s synth pop and all of that. It was just a perfect blend of music. So I was... Yeah, so my anticipation for the next album, yeah, it was up there somewhere. And then it finally dropped in the beginning of the summer. We got Radical Optimism. And I was like, ooh, it's going to be nice. And I remember first listening to it, it's like, yeah, it's good tracks. But I didn't really get that warm, fuzzy feeling that I got from the previous record. But you seldom do that with follow-ups. It's hard to do a follow-up from something like Future Nostalgia. That was so huge, right? So I was give it a chance. I still like the tracks. And you know what? I still do find them okay, but they are just okay. Houdini is still a good track, but the rest, yeah, it's just okay. It's not, like I said, it's not that warm, fuzzy feeling. It's more of a coldness going through it. And it's really weird because it's supposed to be the big summer album, right? This is what we're going to party with all summer long. But it didn't really turn out that way. It's as cold as the water looks like in this picture to me. Not really a bad album. It's okay. But okay is not okay when it comes to following up something like Future Nostalgia. Dua Lipa. Oh, I don't know. She doesn't seem like she's really invested in this. It's just something that she needed to do, and that's really strange to me. This is just me speculating. I'm not talking for Dua Lipa, of course. But it just sounds like that to me. She's just going through the motions, really. So, yeah. Really disappointed. I really, really wanted to love it. I think it's okay. But you know what? Just before recording this video, I haven't listened to this one in months. And that's an indication of something. So, yeah, I had to listen to it before recording this one. Because there was a glimmer of hope. Perhaps I misjudged the tracks. Or, yeah. But no. I still have the same feeling. Unfortunately. I'm so sorry. I really hope the next album will be better. Yeah, I need to talk about this one. The second and probably the biggest disappointment for me this year, we need to talk about Katy once again. I'm of course talking about Katy Perry. And I really, really appreciated her previous albums. One of the Boys, Teenage Dream, Prism, and then she had Witness out. I'm not the biggest fan of that one, but it's got a lot of criticism from a lot of corners around the world and YouTube channels here as well, of course. But it's not as bad as they painted out to be. There are some really good tracks on that one, but it's probably the low point in her career, at that point at least. And then she released Smile during the pandemic. A great album, a very underrated pop album, I think. It's very decent, I think. And she was pregnant at the time, recording Smile, and then she had her baby, and she took some time off, as you do, and then she announced that in 2024 there's going to be a new Katy Perry album. And the fandom went wild, of course, and I had really high hopes for this one. She's been off for a while. It was quite a while since we heard anything from Katy Perry, to be honest. So what would she do in 2024? We were so excited. I was excited, at least, because it's not that serious kind of music. It's not one of those artists where I listen to every single word she sings, like we talked about before. No, this is lightweight pop. You get really happy while listening to it. It's party music and all of that. Bubblegum pop, yeah, you name it. It's just really nice pop music to my ears, at least. So that's why I grow so fond of Katy Perry. It was really good music. So yeah, my hopes were really high. Then she released a single called Woman's World this year, and it's got a lot of criticism. And the reason I did a video called We Need to Talk About Katy, you can go back and listen to my rant about that one, but I will do a short summary here. My biggest gripe about that one wasn't about the lyrics, because it's got a lot of criticism for the lyrics being out of touch and all of that. I don't mind it that much. It's lightweight pop. Come on. I think the biggest gripe with me and so many others, of course, was the involvement of a certain producer / writer that she collaborated with on her first albums. Great one, he did great work on those, but he's since been accused of horrible things, and that should be reason enough to not involve him again, Katy. Yeah, but she did. And that was my biggest gripe with that one. It left a very bad taste in my mouth. But I was naive, stupid even, and I was like, well, listen, it could be just that he's involved in that said single, that track. But then the second single was released, Lifetimes, I think it was called, and it was horrible. And my hopes went down really fast. But still, there was a glimmer of hope in me. There was rumors around Max Martin being involved, and tons of other producers. So she didn't have to use this particular producer, which I won't name here. But she didn't. He's involved in everything, basically, on the new album 143, which stands for I Love You, basically. And during the promotion of for this album, she got asked quite a lot of questions around the critique of the single Woman's World, and certainly the involvement of this producer / writer as well. But she didn't really answer it. She was like just talking about how she found herself, and we need to spread the love and all that. A lot of new age talk to me going around, but nothing of that shows on the album itself. So let me just talk about the album and not take into consideration that horrible person she was working with. The album itself lacks, to me at least, this is my opinion, folks, just remember that, It lacks the passion, even the love for music. There's nothing that was present on her earlier releases at all. I mean, even on Smile, she was pregnant at the time, and it must have been very difficult for her to just keep up the pace and doing the recording sessions and all that. But you could feel that there is some love in that. There is some passion in it, even on that one. But this one was just like, I can't feel anything. It's just cold to the touch. Really, I don't feel that there is any life in this album at all. Sad, very sad to say this, because I had such high hopes for this one. And I know a lot of Katy Perry fans out there, they love it, they love everything that she does. They doesn't consider the criticism at all. And if we do put that aside, like I said I would do with this one, still, the music, it's not even close to what she used to do. What it seems to me that she did here, she told the producer that we were talking about before, and all the other producers or writers, that I want something that's akin to Teenage Dream, Prism, perhaps. The heyday of my career, basically. And that's not bad at all, because we talked about that with certain artists today. I talked about that is. For Propaganda, for example, revisiting A Secret Wish and making that Ex-Propaganda record, which came out beautifully. You can always do that. Revisit an era that you previously had, try to recreate that, but it has to be love involved in that. It has to be a passion involved in that, and I don't feel it at all with this album. And believe me, I really tried to listen to this one more than once. I've probably listened to it 4 or 5 times now, and it doesn't grow on me at all. I'm so disappointed, and that's basically all I want to say. Yeah, but I won't leave you here on this down note. No, I want to bring some hope into the world of pop music in 2025, and I will do that in the form of the brilliant Kim Wilde. Yeah, Kim Wilde released 2 singles this year from an upcoming album that's going to be out, if I'm not mistaken, the 31st of January 2025. I already got it on pre-order. Yeah, so what she did, she released Trail of Destruction, the first single, which is a banger of pop record. Synth pop at its finest, really. What Kim Wilde does best, synth pop, in my opinion. I love that track. And now recently, just before Christmas, she released this one, Midnight Train, which apparently is going to be the opening track for the album. Another great one. My favorite one is Trail of Destruction, though. I really like this one as well. So yeah, I have high hopes for pop music in 2025 for sure. And kicking things off, Kim Wilde with the album Closer. And of course that alludes to being a follow-up to the immensely popular album Close that I already mentioned here a couple of times on my channel as well. It's probably my favorite album by Kim Wilde. And yeah, so this is going to be the follow-up, and I'm so looking forward to this one. And I'm sure Kim won't let us down like Katy did just now this year. Yeah. Ending on a high note, just as I wanted it to be. I want to thank you all for watching yet another video with me, and I'm so sorry. I tried, but it became quite a lengthy one, this one. But I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to talk about my favorite releases from 2024. What are some of your favorite releases from 2024? I want to hear about them down in the comments. It would be great to see what some of your favorites were. Include re-releases for sure. I didn't include the re-releases this year because there was so much else to talk about. But yeah, I would love to hear about it all, so please comment. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you subscribers, everyone who who's watching, giving me the odd thumbs up, the odd comments here and there. I really appreciate that. That gives me the energy to keep going here. And I won't leave you anytime soon. I will keep talking about music. And I won't wish you a Happy New Year just yet, because I will be back in just a couple of days with my final episode here on the retrospective of 1984. I'm gonna see what I was listening to back in December of 1984 in that one. Really looking forward to that one. So yeah, until then, you all take care of yourself, and as usual, I bid you adieu.